In one of the more peculiar turns of events in the Ukrainian conflict, Russia has addressed its battlefield personnel deficits by bringing in soldiers from North Korea. The Kremlin's objective was to seize an advantage over Ukrainian forces in the KSK Oblast through this unanticipated alliance. However, the results are falling far short of the anticipated gains. According to statements made by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, North Korean combat fatalities on the Russian side have already mounted into the thousands, with total casualties, including those killed and injured, nearing 4,000. Moreover, the number of North Korean soldiers taken captive by Kiev's special forces is further augmenting these loss figures. So, just how many North Korean troops have been seized to date, and what number of Pyongyang's soldiers deployed to fight for Putin have been compelled to yield to the Ukrainian army? Might this setback spell the end of the military pact between Moscow and Pyongyang in Cascade? We shall jointly explore these crucial questions. But initially, please do subscribe to our channel, enable notifications, and give a like to remain abreast of our content. The most noteworthy occurrence regarding North Korean soldiers at this moment has been the apprehension of multiple North Korean troops alive by Ukrainian forces. Kiev circulated images of 2 wounded North Korean soldiers recovering in hospital, asserting that these young men profess a lack of awareness that they are engaged on Russia's behalf. They bear Russian names on the IDs that have been issued to them, and they are unable to decipher orders owing to language barriers. Furthermore, this phenomenon isn't limited to just these 2, as there are indications that the quantity of Pyongyang's fighters surrendering might escalate as North Koreans are starting to engage with Ukraine's I Want to Live project. Ukrainian security services, along with US intelligence, have declared that nearly 1,000 North Korean soldiers have been taken out, which means completely removed from combat. Experts in warfare estimate that 500 of the 4,000 North Korean soldiers on the casualty register find themselves in such dire states they must surrender to the Ukrainian army. The precise number has not been publicly disclosed by the Ukrainian Security Service. However, security officials have lately revealed critical insights about the capture of North Korean soldiers. According to the data shared, 2 North Korean soldiers were apprehended in the KSK Oblast. A noteworthy video relating to this was also made public. This footage displayed Ukrainian Special Forces operatives escorting one of the wounded North Koreans through a snowy woodland. Following the video release, Zelensky affirmed Ukraine would grant journalists access to the pair, enabling the world to glean the truth about the conflict. Zelensky commended the paratroopers and tactical unit that saved the North Korean soldiers. Subsequently, the Ukrainian leader conveyed that the 2 North Korean soldiers taken as prisoners of war had been transferred to Kiev and were receiving suitable medical attention for their injuries. The standard of care extended to wounded North Korean POWs in Ukraine was markedly superior and more compassionate. Photographic evidence was even presented in the press to affirm this. Ukrainian intelligence disseminated photographs demonstrating 2 North Korean captives lying on hospital beds, one with bandaged hands and the other with a bandaged chin. As per the Ukrainian Security Service, one of the POWs was born in 2005 and had served in the military since 2021. Security officials stated that this individual had been deployed to Kursk for training and was unaware he would be engaging in combat against Ukraine. The second POW was born in 1999 and had served as a sniper reconnaissance operative in the North Korean Army since 2016. Security officials confirmed that the investigation into these captured North Korean soldiers was ongoing with the aid of South Korean translators, due to neither speaking Russian or Ukrainian. The Ukrainian Security Service also revealed that one of the captives was in possession of a Russian-type military identification card with the name of an individual registered in the Republic of Tuva, while the other had no documentation whatsoever. The Ukrainian military had earlier stated that North Korean soldiers fighting on behalf of Russia had been provided with fabricated military documents that displayed Russian names and places of origin. Prior to the capture of these 2 North Korean soldiers, Kiev declared that Russia was attempting to hide the presence of foreign fighters on the battlefield. Ukrainian Special Forces disclosed in late December that they had eliminated 3 North Korean soldiers in the KSK region and had confiscated their documents. The military identification papers lacked stamps and photos. Family names were given in Russian, and the place of origin was marked as the Republic of Tuva. The Special Forces, in their statement, were referencing a Russian region situated in southern Siberia, bordering Mongolia. Nevertheless, the signatures on the documents were in Korean, thus exposing the true identities of these soldiers. This serious development once more underscores Russia's great efforts to conceal its battlefield losses and obscure the presence of foreign soldiers. Neither Moscow nor Pyongyang has formally admitted the presence of North Korean troops in Russia. Ukraine's leader, Vladimir Zelensky, issued a corresponding statement following this secret revelation, underscoring Russia's attempts to hide the battlefield losses of North Korean soldiers. They are resorting to extreme methods to conceal the identities of the North Korean soldiers that were eliminated in the conflict. Now, Zelensky's claims are being supported by the fact that one of the 2 North Korean soldiers taken into custody by Ukrainian forces held the identity of someone registered in Tuva, while the other held no official documents. On the opposing side, the Kiev government is likewise exploiting the captured North Korean soldiers as a trump card. They intend to gauge how valuable these soldiers might be to Russia for purposes of prisoner exchanges. Ukraine has been able to secure the release of Ukrainian civilians or military personnel in several regions in exchange for Russian soldiers. The North Korean prisoners add an entirely new aspect, given Pyongyang's desire to conceal its clandestine alliance with Moscow. If these surrendered North Korean soldiers were to speak with the world's press, it could unleash a major scandal, exposing the Kim Jong-un regime holding its troops hostage amidst this conflict. Moscow could therefore be highly motivated to push for the return of the North Korean troops during prisoner swaps. But what about those North Korean soldiers that were injured in KSK, but not seized by Ukrainian forces? The entire process makes Russia's decision to transfer North Korean troops deeply controversial. Primarily, the principal problem plaguing Moscow on the KSK front is that the logistical disorder on the ground also impacts North Korean soldiers. Famine, absence of shelter, and medical facilities are swiftly eroding the morale of these young men. There are reports that Russian military doctors are showing little concern for North Koreans that are wounded or severely ill. In some instances, they are left to perish without even being taken to a medical facility. Ukrainian intelligence reports reveal substantial numbers of North Korean soldiers are filling hospitals in the Korko Oblast. Hundreds of injured North Korean troops are convalescing in Oblast medical centers and preparing to return to the front line. There are also reports, however, that some of these troops are in a critical state. Russian military officials have refuted these assertions. However, firm evidence concerning the condition of the North Koreans has emerged. Ukrainian security forces intercepted a phone conversation between a nurse at a hospital in the Moscow region and her husband, who is engaged in combat against Ukraine in the KV region. During the intercepted discussion, the Russian woman stated that, within just a handful of days, more than 200 wounded North Korean soldiers had been admitted to a Russian hospital near Moscow. In the subsequent conversation, the Russian woman complained that the wounded North Koreans were being housed in superior conditions as compared to the Russian troops. The medics were, according to her, unable to communicate with the wounded North Korean soldiers owing to the language barrier. They were also prohibited from speaking with the troops in English. On the other hand, those who have been captured by the Ukrainian side or have voluntarily surrendered are treated in compliance with the Geneva Conventions and are receiving medical care. This is increasingly becoming a widely known truth among Pyongyang troops on the front. The propaganda being broadcast at home about helping Russia, showing bravery, and suggesting tremendous blessings is, in fact, shattering the illusions of many North Korean soldiers as they grapple with hunger, frost, drone attacks, and the harsh conduct of Russian officers. It is easy to appreciate the disappointment among those North Koreans who eagerly joined the fighting for Russia under such severe conditions in K Oblast. Those who were hoping for a heroic endeavor based on Kim Jong-un's propaganda are actually experiencing hell due to Ukrainian artillery and drone fire. Inexperienced in the face of drone and missile attacks, these young soldiers are frequently thrust into the front lines without establishing protected positions. They lack understanding of their locations and cannot even understand Russian. meaning they cannot interpret commands accurately. The Ukrainians are capitalizing on this organizational weakness. Many Pyongyang soldiers have been either killed or wounded in skirmishes around KSK. Some prefer to seek sanctuary on the Ukrainian side, even when apprehended, out of concern for being executed by Russia. Ukraine already has a long-established surrender line known as I Want to Live, which has invited Russian soldiers to seek safe captivity through this project. Kiev will now extend the same option to North Koreans. The I Want to Live project's announcement in Korean proclaims, "This war is not your war. You have been misled by Putin and Kim Jong-un. If you give yourself up, you will be treated in accordance with the Geneva Conventions." Testimonies from North Koreans who have already deserted the KSK front, or who have been wounded and have taken sanctuary in Ukraine, confirm that the treatment and humane approach provided by Kiev is vastly superior to that in Russia. This could even spread to other Pyongyang soldiers currently on the front lines, leading to a wave of mass surrenders. Even the Kim regime's threat that if you desert your family will be punished does not quell the horrors of war. It is evident that the likelihood of returning is likewise restricted because of regime oppression. The Kim Jong-un regime is notorious for punishing the families of soldiers who desert. Thus, even though Pyongyang troops are largely silent about their discontent within the Russian army, actual instances such as attempts to defect to Ukraine as prisoners of war are evidence of growing unrest. According to the Ukrainian security services, several North Koreans have died in operations in the KSK Oblast over recent weeks, while others have been apprehended and wounded. During the initial phase of the conflict, there was a perception that troops with labels like North Korean snipers or storm corps were displaying exceptional performance. However, it quickly became apparent that these soldiers, untrained to face modern artillery and drones, could not survive in the trenches into which they were pushed. The language barrier further complicates matters. Russian officers attempt to relay orders to these young men who do not understand Korean, either through gestures or inadequate translations. Likewise, Russian soldiers hold little sympathy for the North Koreans, whom they perceive as foreign combatants that are stealing their jobs. This absence of cohesiveness is exacerbating coordination gaps on the battlefield. Retired Lieutenant General Chun In-bum, a veteran of the South Korean Army, stated that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un would send the cream of his forces, an elite band of highly trained and brainwashed soldiers known as the Storm Corps. But as you may recall, the Ukrainians wiped out this special Storm Corps from the KSK front. The 11th Corps suffered more than 1,000 casualties following the most recent push by Ukrainian forces. Some of the soldiers in this Storm Corps, which endured massive casualties, were special operatives such as the US Navy SEALs or Rangers, or Britain's SAS. Others were light infantry and snipers. Experts deemed the Storm Corps, the 11th Army Corps of the North Korean Army, to be better trained, in superior physical condition, and more motivated than the average North Korean soldier. Yet this did not save them from the realities of the K battlefield. UAVs, particularly, became the North Korean soldiers' greatest nightmare. The overwhelming majority of the North Korean troops that were eliminated were victims of precision drone strikes. Command and communication issues made it impossible for North Korean soldiers to know how to react to impending danger. The North Koreans, who comprehended approximately 100 basic military terms, such as fire and position, often only had a few seconds to witness Ukrainian drones before they crashed. Such circumstances reiterate the importance of proper training on the war front. As per the US State Department, the training North Korean soldiers receive in Russia covers basic infantry operations such as artillery usage, drone deployment, and trench clearance. These are pivotal skills for frontline missions. However, due to inadequate training time, North Korean soldiers do not normally benefit from the lessons they receive on the battlefield. In the wake of heavy losses, it remains uncertain whether the poorly trained North Korean soldiers will dig trenches, hold positions, or engage in actual combat on the front lines. The Pyongyang regime is even suggesting the deployment of more inexperienced North Korean soldiers at Russia's disposal in the near future, despite the record number of casualties at KSK. To put it differently, in addition to the 12,000 soldiers, North Korea could allocate more personnel to Putin's forces. Pyongyang's most recent strategy appears to involve sending 100,000 troops to seize upon Russian technology. South Korea believes it is highly probable that North Korea will demand a transfer of cutting-edge technology from Russia, encompassing technologies related to tactical nuclear weapons, intercontinental ballistic missiles, surveillance satellites, and ballistic missile submarines. Such a transaction appears to be advantageous for both nations. In reality, Pyongyang has placed tens of thousands of North Korean soldiers at Putin's service in order to secure these supplies and technology from Russia. Alongside manpower, North Korea has dispatched millions of artillery shells and other weaponry to Russia. Pyongyang has also provided Moscow with long-range rocket and artillery platforms, according to media outlets that cited Ukrainian intelligence. But might the deployment of additional North Korean troops to Russia influence the outcome of the conflict? This war, which has been raging for approximately 3 years, has transformed into a literal war of attrition. The Russian army has suffered more than 700,000 losses, according to official Ukrainian figures. Moreover, North Korean losses, which have reached 3,000, prove the grim fate of soldiers in this war. In other words, the inclusion of more North Korean soldiers to the Russian side is unlikely to alter the course of the war. Furthermore, many significant challenges await the North Koreans. These young and inexperienced soldiers have been confronting hunger games over recent days. North Korean soldiers have initiated mass revolts on the front lines because they are not receiving sufficient sustenance. The Chief Intelligence Directorate of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry confirms that North Korean troops are, in fact, facing significant food shortages in KSK. According to intelligence reports, there is escalating discontent among North Korean military personnel stationed in the KSK region owing to inadequate food supplies. North Korean troops assigned to the 11th Marine Brigade and the Airborne Brigade are complaining about the insufficient food being provided to them by the Russian military. Russia is urgently attempting to find a resolution to this problem. Because of this, Russia deployed a general to the front line in the KSK region. Major General Mev Utov, the deputy commander for resource supply of the Leningrad military district, was sent to the course fields to resolve the issue of North Korean soldiers who were suffering from hunger on the spot. The general commanded the delivery of individual rations from the food stocks of the 11th Separate Airborne Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces to members of the North Korean Army. However, it is obvious that this solution was temporary. It remains uncertain how long the North Koreans, who cannot even obtain adequate food, will manage to endure these conditions. Should food stocks be exhausted, North Korean soldiers in KSK are likely to rebel, desert from the front lines, or surrender to the Ukrainian armed forces. But famine is not the only issue North Korean soldiers are undergoing. Russian commanders are also subjecting them to harsh treatment. Russian soldiers show no respect for them as fellow soldiers. Faced with extreme insults, violence, and other inhuman behavior, North Korean troops are becoming more and more hesitant to continue fighting for Russia. Due to all these factors, we expect that North Korean soldiers are very likely to surrender during the conflict, try to escape, and even apply for asylum. Although the Kremlin and Pyongyang are trying to conceal it, there are constant discussions about the increase in desertions among North Korean soldiers. In mid-October, North Koreans deserted from Russian combat camps without ever having been in combat. On October 15th, 18 North Korean soldiers deserted and were apprehended by Russian FSB forces. 2 days later, when Ukraine targeted groups of North Korean soldiers for the first time, a grouping of 40 North Koreans was annihilated by a HIMARS strike. Aware of the number of casualties and desertions, Ukraine's defense ministry reintroduced the I Want to Live Surrender hotline for North Korean soldiers fighting under Putin's command in KSK. Ukraine's I Want to Live project has issued a new video in Korean that calls on North Korean soldiers to surrender to Ukrainian forces upon their deployment to conflict zones. The video, which features Ukrainian prisoner of war camps, states that upon surrender, North Korean soldiers will be held in compliance with the Geneva Conventions, and that the Ukrainian side guarantees safe detention, nourishment, and medical treatment. Regardless of how many troops Pyongyang sends to aid Russia, and no matter where the conflict is situated, Ukrainian POW camps seem ready to take in soldiers of all nationalities, religions, and ideological viewpoints. The 24-hour hotline launched by the main Directorate of Intelligence of Ukraine in September 2022 was created to assist Russian soldiers to voluntarily surrender themselves or their units to the Ukrainian army. It is now anticipated to broaden its services to serve North Korean soldiers who wish to surrender. In short, Russia's persistent reliance on North Korean troops on the battlefield is expected to only cause negative repercussions for the military cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang over the long term. This situation will become more crucial as conditions of the conflict worsen and Russia becomes unable to care for North Korean troops to the same degree that it cannot provide humanitarian aid for its own soldiers. The number of Pyongyang troops surrendering to Kiev is projected to increase notably as the North Korean soldiers, who fought for Russia in KSK, realized that they were treated with great warmth when they came under the protection of Ukrainian forces as prisoners of war. North Korean soldiers who do not surrender will be an easier target for the Ukrainian army as they are fighting under difficult circumstances. This will increase the casualties of North Korean soldiers fighting for Russia. Thank you for watching. Many events have unfolded across the globe. Let's explore them in depth today. Before we delve further, remember to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Your engagement is vital for the continued growth of our platform. Please take a moment to tell us where you are watching from in the comments below. And make sure you watch the video until the very end because we will conclude everything with important insights.